So now we're going to talk about conversions within the metric unit. This is one of the skills that you're going to use most often in this course and in more advanced courses. Converting between the metric units is a lot more simplified than it is within the standard units, because with the metric conversions, at most, you'll only have 2 steps. And that's because you're only dealing with a prefix and a base, and you're not going to have a bunch of other equalities that could be used to get you to the end point. Think about if you're going from days into seconds. You would need, or even years into seconds. You're going to need a bunch of equalities to get you to that step. With the metric units, you're only going to have at max 2. All right, when you're converting with the metric units, you're going to need to become very familiar at using a metric unit conversion chart. There's a bunch of them out there. You can get on Google and Google metric unit conversion chart, and they're arranged differently with more or less information, but basically it's going to tell you the same information. One of the things you'll find on the prefix or on the metric unit chart is the prefix column. The prefix column is going to be the one that tells you, is it a large number or is it a smaller unit? It is always divided with the top half are your larger prefix units. So these are the units that are very large macro scale units. And then the second half or bottom half is your small prefix units. So these are your microscopic units usually. And we deal with both in chemistry. The dividing line is your base unit. So all of your base units, it does not have to be the meter. All of your base units will be right smack dab in the middle. And it is equal to 1, which is why I have that written right there. And I'll give you a list of all the different base units that you need to be able to recognize. Meter is one of the most common ones, so I showed you on here where that would lie. All right, the next thing you're going to see on the chart is the symbols. So these are the symbols that are going to represent that unit. The symbol is placed next to the base unit symbol. So for example, if I want to say it's a megameter, I would put the mega symbol in the capital M because that's where it is right here. And then I would add the base unit or that we're dealing with. So if it was meters, it would look like that. So that tells me right there that I'm dealing with a megameter. If I was dealing with grams as in mass, and I wanted it to be a megagram, it would look like this. All right, your prefixed units are going to always have 2 letters. If you're dealing with just the simple base unit, you would just put meter or the gram, okay? And you can do it with any of them, same thing with liter. So I could put a kiloliter, all right? I can make it a centiliter, and so on, all right? So that's what the little symbol box is for. And then the most common one that you're gonna see is the scientific notation multiplier. You can see it here. I put this chart on here so you could see it actually written out, just to also kind of highlight the point that we're dealing with such big and small numbers in chemistry and physics and even in biology that it is just a pain to write out all of those zeros. So we use the scientific notation, and that is what you see in this column here, your 10 base with your powers, because it would be a pain to have to write out all of those zeros if I'm converting between a gram and an hexagram. So this column here, the scientific notation column, is the most common you'll see. Usually in a smaller chart, you'll just get the prefix, the symbol, and the scientific notation multiplier. Now, what this multiplier is telling you is how many of your base units fit into your prefix. All right, so basically these are your equalities. They're just put in a column tabulated form. So for instance, what this chart is telling me, let's look at the kilo here. Kilo, okay, kilo, depending on how you pronounce it. All right, here you can see going straight across, right there. All right, you can see that for every 1 kilo, all right, so if we're doing, let's say the meter, since it's in the chart here, so for every 1 kilometer, it equals 1,000 meters. So your multiplier is always representing how many of the base unit fit into that prefix, okay? So I could do the same thing here with micro. So if I look here, let's say we're looking at the gram, I can see that the microgram, so 1 microgram, is equal to 10 to the negative 6 grams, okay? Again, you can see with the smaller units, you have you have less than 1 gram to make them because they're small, and then the larger units obviously are showing you that you've got a big number of the base unit in there. So that's how you use the chart. So these are your equalities just tabulated in tabulated form. Okay, so you just have to remember the multiplier represents your base unit. So all of this here shows you how much of the base unit is in the prefix. So when you're setting up your equalities and your fractions, you just have to remember your prefix will always have a 1 next to it. Okay, your powers, your 10 powers will always have the base unit. All right, so let's talk about how we can actually set these problems up.